Hey guys, what's going on? Andy Clements here and welcome to another episode of the Muscle Building Mastery Podcast. In today's episode, I want to talk to you a little bit about the secret key to growing big legs. And it's maybe a little bit more obvious than you might think, right? But what I want to tell you is I want to tell you a little bit of a backstory about how I went about training legs for so long and why I didn't grow any decent sized legs for so long, right? So for the first maybe, I don't know, 5 or 6 years that I was training, I developed some kind of muscle in my legs, of course, because I trained them, but it wasn't anywhere near what I thought I was capable of. And you know, when you look at some of the best physiques in the world, or some of the people that you admire the physique of, they've always got a great set of legs, and legs are the hardest part to grow because they take it takes some real effort and some real fortitude to actually go in the gym and train your legs to the extent that it's going to make them grow, right? So I didn't have the kind of development that I wanted, I'm going to be honest, and the reason was because I was trying to it was how I was approaching my whole training at that time as well. But I was trying to do the fancy stuff, right? I was trying to do the I was just using bands and chains, and I was doing single leg stuff, and I was trying to just like overthink it, right? And so I never ended up using any really significant amount of weight. I wasn't very strong with my lower body. I wasn't very strong in general, but I wasn't very strong with my lower body especially. And my only answer to everything was to try different exercises that were, new and looked cool and farmed in the likes on Instagram, right? I didn't really grow. So fast forward to maybe 4 or 5 years ago now, and I started training with a new training partner, and he introduced me to somebody I'd never heard of at that time called Jordan Peters. And you might have seen Jordan Peters. He's online as Trained by JP. His old movement's Trained by JP. He's a really, really cool guy. And I started following this guy called Trained by JP, and one of the things that he used to say, which really sort of stuck with me and sort of sunk into my head and shaped the way I approach my leg workouts and every workout, but especially my leg workouts from then on, was do the hard stuff. That was what he used to say. He used to say, he probably still does. I don't go on social media very much anymore, but he used to say, do the hard stuff. Okay, that was his little hashtag, do the hard stuff. And he might not mean much to you right now, do the hard stuff, but the hard stuff means the stuff that works, the 80% that works, not the 20% that I was trying to, the fluffy stuff, like the volume stuff, like the 20 rep lunges and the, single leg extensions and the, bands on everything and tempos and all that sort of stuff. That's also good. It has its place. I'm not, saying it doesn't. But the stuff that works is the hard stuff, and that's your stuff like your squatting movements. Now, I'm not saying you need to squat with a bar on your back. I'm saying a squatting movement, right? So that could be a hack squat, it could be a V squat, it could be a barbell squat, it could be a front squat, it could be whatever squat you want, or whatever squat suits your body. But if you find a squat that works and is hard, and then you start to progressively overload that movement, right? So, I remember I started with hack squats, and once every 2 weeks, me and my training partner would go in, we'd do hack squats, and we'd alternate hack squats 1 week with a different kind of squat, V squat or a barbell squat or something the next. It changed, but we also had hack squats in there. And every single 2 weeks, it was non-negotiable, we would either increase the weight or increase the reps. It's okay, we have to beat our numbers now, right? And if we couldn't, then it was time for a deload, so we'd probably be 6 to 8 weeks in by the time we couldn't beat our numbers anymore. But that's what we did. We progressively overloaded the hack squat. And I remember this particular hack squat at the gym that we used to train at was really unforgiving. It was really steep and it was hard, man. So we used to load that up, and I remember when we started, I think I could only put 120 kg plate on each side, which is 45 pounds or whatever it is in pounds. And that was all like 40 kilos, that's all I could do. And then over the course of maybe a year or a year and a half, I worked my way up to 3 plates, which is per side, so that's 3 20-plate sides, so 60 per side. So I went from 40 to 120, and then after about another year, the kind of place where I got to where I was at my strongest was 4 plates a side. So I literally 4x'd, quadrupled my strength. What do you think that did to my muscle, right? I know that we say that sort of, you know, oh, it doesn't matter if you're strong or not, blah, 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 blah. It does, right? Because the amount of weight that you can put on an exercise or on a machine, or the amount, increases the amount of force that you're putting through your muscle. If you're controlling your execution, if you're controlling your form, and you know, all the other variables are the same, you're the same speed, you're the same form, you're contracting your muscle the same, what do you think is going to work better? 40 kilos or 160 kilos? It's going to be the 160, right? Because the force is 4 times as much. You're pushing against gravity 4 times as hard to get out of that hole, right? Because you've got 4 times the weight on. So that was what we did. That was what we did about over the course of about 2 or 3 years. We just went in and we just nailed it and nailed it and nailed it and nailed it. And sometimes the weight wouldn't go up very much. Sometimes from one session to the next, you would only increase by 1 rep. But that 1 rep was a progression, and those little micro progressions add up over time. And over the course of those couple of years, those 2 or 3 years, like I said, 4 times my strength on that. And that wasn't the only, you know, exercise that was really, really important, because that was one of the hard things. Like JP used to say, do the hard stuff. The other hard thing, the other big movement that we used to rely on for legs was a leg press, right? And a leg press is it's nothing like mind-blowing. It's nothing, you know, thinking necessarily outside the box, right? Because you don't need to. A leg press is one of the fundamentals that will grow your legs, and we did exactly the same on that. So we'd get off the hack squat after doing 2 sets on that, we'd get off the hack squat and we'd go and do our 2 sets on the leg press, right? And we would work up. So I can't remember exactly what I used to lift. It was about 3 or 4 plates a side, right? About 3 or 4 25 kg plates a side on that one. And I worked up, and I was getting like 8 or 9 25 plates a side, right? So I'm like doubling my strength on that, right? And the amount of weight that you're putting through your quads and your glutes at that point, I would dare you to progress your strength by 2 to 4x and not grow your legs. I dare you, right? Because it's impossible. So that's like one of the big major keys here, is do the hard stuff, implement progressive overload, and just keep going. And even if it's a micro progression, even if you're just getting a 1 rep up, right? Or if you're going the other way, this is like maybe an offshoot to this, because I'm covering a lot of ground here, that if you're going the other way and you're trying to diet, right, and you're trying to bring the body fat down, then there comes a point where you're probably not going to get stronger anymore because you're getting depleted, right? So if you're bringing your body fat down and you're trying to reveal the abs and you're trying to get the beach body and all the rest of it, then you're probably going to get depleted. But in order to hang on to as much muscle mass as physically possible, you need to hang on to as much strength as physically possible. So in the first few weeks of the diet, there's no excuse to not still be progressing because you're not depleted yet. But once you get to 8, 10, 12, 14, 16 weeks into a diet, then you're going to start being depleted more and more, and your job is to hold on to that strength as much as possible. So your mindset needs to switch from I need to make the micro progressions to I need to stop the micro regressions. Does that make sense? Are you getting that? So essentially what you need to do is if you like, let's take my numbers for example there on the hack squat. If I was getting 4 plates aside on the hack squat at my strongest over 16 weeks, because I lost 25 pounds in body fat, then I probably would have been depleted to an extent where I probably would have dropped half a plate. So it would have been like 3.5 plates aside, right? So instead of 160, it probably would have been like 140 or 130 or whatever, right? So that's inevitable sometimes, but I would fight and claw every step of the way to hang on to as much strength as physically possible. So, you know, instead of dropping a full plate, I only drop half a plate, or instead of dropping 10, I only drop 5, right? And then in the moment, in the session to session context there, what's important to realize is that you need to be, you know, if you look at your logbook, we should be logging everything down. And if you look at your logbook that you wrote down last time, and you say, okay, Last time I came in the gym and the hack squats, I got 160 for 5. Today, my goal is 160 for 5, right? Even though I'm depleted, I got that number last time. I'm going to go everything I've got for that number this time. And if you can hang on to that strength, and if you can maintain as much strength as physically possible at a lower body weight, you've just cracked the game. And then when you start pushing the body weight up, imagine what's going to happen to the strength again, right? Because you've fought and you've clawed to keep that strength while you're at lower body weight. Then when you push the body weight up, the strength is going to come up in line and you're going to explode, right? And that's the whole game. Like, I know that's maybe covering a lot of ground right there, but that really is the whole game. So I hope that made sense, and that's the key to growing big legs, but that's also the key to growing every part of your body. Obviously the exercises change, but you know, as a general rule, the hard stuff, the stuff that you don't really want to do, especially on legs, like nobody like really genuinely looks forward to a heavy hack squat. Nobody genuinely looks forward to a heavy leg press that makes your head want to explode, right? But that's the stuff that works. So do the hard stuff, make them micro progressions in the short term, and that will lead you to the big progressions in the long term. Hope that made sense, guys. Don't forget to subscribe. If you're listening to this on iTunes or Spotify or Anchor or any other podcast platform, please go leave me a review. It really helps. And if you're watching this on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Leave me a comment in the comment section below, and I will see you over there in the next episode of Muscle Building Mastery. Peace.